Hannah placed my mechanical pencil on the counter and slid 2 printed pages beside it. One page was my biography from Astrogrid Systems. The other was a Denver business article with a photograph of me standing on a stage beneath my full name, Daniel Mercer. For weeks, Hannah had known me as Dan, the man sleeping in an old cargo van who seemed to know too much about electrical systems and never gave a straight answer about his last job. Now, she looked from the photograph to me. "What is your full name?" I knew exactly what had happened. Noah had found the pencil. The small Astrogrid logo near the clip was nearly worn away, but not enough. "Hannah, what is your full name?" Her voice was quiet. No shouting. No tears. That frightened me more than anger would have. "Daniel Mercer." She nodded once. "And you founded this company?" "Yes." "You're still the executive chair?" "Yes." She touched the article with one finger. "And you're a billionaire." I looked at the page instead of her. "Yes." For a few seconds, the only sound between us was the steady rotation of the dryers behind her. Then, Hannah asked the question that ended the version of my life I had been living for almost 5 weeks. "Are you homeless?" "No." Something in her face changed. Not shock. Something colder. "So the van. Mine. And the house. I own one." "Where?" "Cherry Creek." She took a slow breath. I had spent years imagining this moment. I had imagined surprise, anger, maybe disbelief. What I had never imagined was shame. My own. Because 6 weeks earlier, when I began all of this, I thought I was trying to find out whether a woman could care about me without knowing I had money. By the time Hannah discovered the truth, I had my answer. She could. The problem was that I had learned almost nothing about trust. And she was about to teach me. 6 weeks earlier, I had been standing in a downtown Denver ballroom listening to a woman I had met twice explain why we should spend a week in Cabo together. She was intelligent, funny, successful, and attractive enough that 3 men had turned to look when she entered the room. There was nothing wrong with her. That was what bothered me. There was never anything obviously wrong. For the previous 3 years, almost every date had left me with the same question. Did she like me? Or did she like what happened around me? The restaurant manager greeting me by name. The table that suddenly appeared even when the place was fully booked. The driver waiting outside. The house. The invitations. The articles. The number attached to my net worth. At 43, I had become very good at identifying financial risk and surprisingly bad at accepting affection without examining it. My name is Daniel Mercer. 16 years earlier, I had founded Astrogrid Systems with 3 engineers in a borrowed workshop that leaked when it rained. We built control software for commercial energy systems. Nothing glamorous. Our technology helped large buildings understand where they were wasting power and how to manage demand more intelligently. For years, we survived contract to contract. Then we grew. Slowly at first, and then all at once. By the time I was 40, the value of my shares had made me wealthier than I had ever wanted to become. People called me a billionaire. I never woke up feeling like one. But I noticed what the word did to everyone else. People laughed harder. Waiters became more attentive. Strangers remembered my birthday. Acquaintances suddenly had business ideas. Women who had seemed casually interested became fascinated once they learned my last name. Maybe some of them would have liked me anyway. That was the part one could no longer tell. The morning after the Cabo conversation, I went to see Thomas Reed. Thomas had been Astrogrid's general counsel for 9 years. He was 50, careful, irritatingly observant, and one of the few people in my life who had never confused agreement with loyalty. I explained the plan in his office. 6 weeks away from my normal life. No executive car. No townhouse. No expensive clothes. No introductions that came with a company. I still owned an old cargo van from Astrogrid's startup days. I would live in it, park in a paid private lot, use a fixed cash budget, and tell people I was between jobs. Thomas listened without interrupting. That should have warned me. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. You understand you won't actually be homeless. I'll be living in a van. By choice. I know. With a home you can return to. Yes. And enough money to end any inconvenience the moment you decide you've learned something profound. I frowned. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. I waited. Thomas folded his hands. You can imitate discomfort, Daniel. You cannot imitate the absence of options. I'm not claiming I can. Good. Then, don't take resources from people who genuinely need them. No shelter bed. No food assistance. No charity money. Agreed. No fake identification. I looked at him. I'm not committing fraud. You're creating a false impression of your life and waiting to see how strangers behave. I'm establishing where your standards are. You make this sound worse than it is. His expression did not change. That sentence should concern you. I almost laughed. He didn't. Then, he said something I remembered much later. The moment someone starts caring about you, this stops being anonymous. From that point forward, whatever lesson you're trying to learn has a cost for someone else. At the time, I thought he was being dramatic. I arranged a temporary leave from Astergrid. Our chief operating officer already handled daily operations, so the company did not collapse because I disappeared for a few weeks. Thomas remained my emergency contact. My assistant knew only that I was unavailable unless something truly required me. I packed 2 duffel bags, left my watch at home, and drove the van to a private lot outside central Denver. I also carried one thing from work without thinking much about it. A scratched mechanical pencil Astergrid had made for employees on our 10th anniversary. The logo had nearly disappeared beneath years of use. 3 days later, I walked into Bright Wash with a bag of dirty clothes. I noticed Hannah before I knew her name. She was kneeling in front of a washer with blue painter's tape stuck to the back of one hand and a screwdriver between her fingers. She wore jeans, a muted green overshirt, and the expression of someone who had already decided the machine was going to cooperate whether it wanted to or not. A woman near the counter looked at my duffel bag when I walked in. First time, yes. I'm Julia. We partner with a neighborhood outreach program. If you're dealing with housing instability and need help covering a load, I can explain the voucher system. I had enough cash in my pocket to wash everything I owned several times. I appreciate it, I said. I can pay. Julia nodded. Okay. No pity. No suspicion. No speech about dignity. Just okay. Hannah stood, wiped her hands on a rag, and came behind the counter. Machine 12 is out. Use anything else. She sold me detergent, pointed toward the change machine, and returned to the broken washer. That was our first conversation. I had spent years wondering how people behaved around me when money was present. Hannah's first gift was that she barely behaved around me at all. 20 minutes later, while moving my clothes into a dryer, I noticed cash near a folding table. 6 $20 bills. I picked them up and looked around. Nobody nearby seemed to be searching. I carried the money to the counter. Somebody dropped this. Hannah counted it. 120. Yeah. She pulled a small envelope from beneath the register and wrote the time on it. You sure it wasn't yours? If my laundry starts producing money, I'm buying this detergent in bulk. She smiled. It was the first time she really looked at me. About an hour later, a man rushed through the front door patting every pocket he had. Hannah asked him what he had lost and where. His description matched. She handed him the envelope. He thanked her, then she pointed toward me. He found it. The man came over and shook my hand. You have no idea what you just saved me. I told him it was nothing. When he left, Hannah looked at me for a moment. Most people would have kept it. Most people. She shrugged. Enough people. Then, she turned away. I came back 4 days later. My clothes did not need washing. I washed a blanket from the van. That was how it started. Over the next week, I learned Hannah was 38 and owned Bright Washington. She had bought the business 3 years earlier from an older couple who wanted to retire. She rented the space, but owned the machines, which meant every strange noise carried a dollar amount in her head. She had a 16-year-old son named Noah. Julia Torres, 42, worked for a local nonprofit and had been Hannah's closest friend for years. I learned these things slowly because Hannah did not interrogate people. She let them become familiar. One morning, Machine 7 flashed an error code while she was carrying a basket of wash and fold orders. She muttered under her breath and reached toward the controls. Has it done that before? I asked. She looked at me. Twice. You might want to leave it off. Why? That code can mean the control board is seeing inconsistent current from the drive. Her eyes narrowed. You fix washers? No. That was a very specific answer for no. I've worked around industrial control systems. She glanced back at the display. So reset it or don't reset it. If it were mine, I'd shut it down and have the vendor check it. If it were yours, you'd know every hour it sits dead costs money. That's exactly why I wouldn't gamble the motor on another reset. For several seconds, she studied me as if deciding whether I was knowledgeable or merely annoying. Then, she unplugged the washer and taped an out-of-service sign across the door. The licensed technician arrived the next morning. I happened to be there. That part was deliberate. Hannah saw me and shook her head. You really like doing laundry. I'm developing standards. The technician inspected the washer and told her the drive assembly was reporting irregular voltage. He wanted to test it properly before putting the machine back into service. Hannah looked across the room at me. I raised both hands. I still don't fix washers. After the technician left, Julia walked over. What kind of systems? I was folding a t-shirt. What? You told Hannah you worked around industrial control systems. Energy systems. Building controls. Software. Where? A few places. She stared at me. I kept folding. Hannah handed Julia a stack of forms. Leave him alone. I asked one question, and he answered half of it. Julia took the forms. That's my point. She walked away. I looked at Hannah. She doesn't trust me. She doesn't trust mystery. Is there a difference? About 3 bad decisions. I remembered that. A few evenings later, Hannah closed at 8 while I was still folding laundry. She flipped the front sign to closed. You hungry? Yes. There's a diner 2 blocks away. I tried not to smile. Are you asking me to dinner? I'm informing you that dinner exists. You can decide whether to follow me. I followed her. She ordered a turkey melt. I ordered chili. For almost an hour, we talked about everything except the subject I had built my entire experiment around. Money. She told me she grew up in New Mexico, moved to Colorado in her 20s, married at 27, had Noah 5 years later, and divorced when he was 11. I told her my father died when I was 29. I told her my mother lived in Fort Collins. I told her I had spent most of my adult life building systems. All of that was true. I simply arranged the truth so it created the wrong picture. You miss the work? She asked. Sometimes. Then why aren't you doing it? I looked down at the bowl in front of me. I needed to know who I was without it. She studied me. That sounds expensive. I almost laughed. You have no idea. She smiled. I did too. And for one moment, sitting in a diner under fluorescent lights, I felt lighter than I had in years. Then, I remembered that she was laughing with a man I had carefully constructed for her. Not a fictional man. That would have been easier. A selectively edited one. A few days later, Noah came into Bright Wash after school. He was tall for 16, thin, and wearing a robotics club t-shirt under a gray hoodie. He noticed a control theory paperback beside me. You an engineer? Sometimes. He looked at his mother. That's not an answer. Hannah did not look up from the register. He does that. Noah smiled. His robotics team had been working on a small mechanical arm that kept overshooting its target position. He started explaining the problem, then stopped. You probably don't care. I care if you show me. He pulled up a video on his phone. I could see the likely issue almost immediately. Instead of giving him the answer, I asked, what happens if your correction is too aggressive? It overshoots. And then, it corrects back. And then, he stared at the video. Oh, I waited. His eyes changed. You think our tuning is too aggressive. I think you think your tuning is too aggressive. That is incredibly annoying. Good. You'll remember it. He went through the video again, talking faster now. Hannah watched from behind the counter. Later, after Noah left, she said, you knew the answer. I had a guess. You made him find it. He'll trust his own answer more. She folded 2 towels before speaking again. That was kind. I didn't do much. That's what made it kind. Something changed after that. I stopped pretending I returned to Bright Wash because I had laundry. Hannah stopped pretending she believed me. We walked after closing. We ate tacos from a place with 6 tables and a handwritten menu. She brought me dinner one evening after learning I had been living mostly on sandwiches. I never stayed at her duplex because Noah was there, and Hannah had been clear from the beginning that she did not move relationships into her son's life quickly. I respected that boundary. I was proud of myself for respecting it. I did not see the irony. One night, as we stood outside Bright Wash, she asked where I slept. In the van. Every night. For now. Safe. Yes. You have somewhere you could go if it stopped being safe? I hesitated. Yes. She noticed. Family. Something like that. She let it go. That was one of the things I liked most about her. She could care without demanding ownership of every unanswered question. I mistook that generosity for permission. Julia did not. Near the end of the 3rd week, she caught me outside while Hannah was helping a customer. I know a facilities company that needs an assistant, she said. Steady hours. Real payroll. They need someone who understands equipment and actually shows up. That's kind of you. It's not glamorous. I've survived unglamorous. What would you need? I asked. Application. ID. Tax forms. Probably a background check. My answer came too fast. I can't. Julia heard everything in those 2 words. Can't or don't want to. Both. Why? I'm not looking for formal work right now. You told Hannah you're between jobs. I am. Those things don't fit. I could have invented a story. I didn't. I appreciate the offer. That is not an explanation. No. She watched me for a long moment. Then I'm not giving you the referral. I understand. She turned toward the door, then looked back. Hannah has a good heart, Dan. I know. She isn't stupid. But kind people sometimes explain away things they would warn someone else about. I'm not dangerous. Julia gave me a flat look. That is an extremely low standard. Then she walked inside. That evening, Hannah asked me directly, is there something in your past that could hurt me or Noah? No. Are you married? No. Running from charges? No. Debt collectors? No. We sat on a bench outside the laundromat. She had tucked her hands into the sleeves of a soft blue cardigan. I don't need your entire history because we've had dinner a few times, she said. You're allowed to keep things private. I nodded. But if there's something that would make me feel like I'm living in a completely different story from the one that's actually happening, I need to know. There it was. A line so clear that I could not later pretend I had missed it. I looked at her and told myself I still had time. There's nothing dangerous. Her eyes stayed on mine. That wasn't exactly what I asked. I know. She waited. I said nothing. Finally, she looked away. Julia thinks you're hiding something. She's right. That brought her eyes back to me. At least that's honest. Some things are hard to explain before you know someone. That can also be true. She was giving me room. I used it to keep hiding. That night, we kissed for the first time. It was quiet, brief, and ordinary in the best possible way. No hotel suite. No reservation someone else had made for me. No driver waiting. No one around us knew my last name. I drove back to the van feeling victorious. Even now, I hate admitting that. Victorious. As though Hannah had passed an exam she did not know she was taking. The next 2 weeks were the happiest part of the entire experiment. They were also the part one had the least right to enjoy. Hannah and I became something close to a couple without ever formally saying so. I helped her close Bright Washington. She teased me about owning only 2 decent shirts. Noah occasionally asked me questions about robotics, and I learned he hated vague praise, but responded immediately if you told him exactly what was wrong. One afternoon, a vendor invoice had been left on the counter. As I handed it back to Hannah, I noticed 2 lines. They charged you twice for the diagnostic. She took the page. How do you know? Line 3 and line 8. She checked. You read invoices for fun? Occupational damage. Your mysterious previous occupation becomes more suspicious every week. I smiled. She didn't. One day, you're going to have to give me a noun. A noun. Engineer. Contractor. Consultant. Cult leader. Something. Not cult leader. That narrows it down. The joke gave me another escape. I took it. The truth caught up with me on a Thursday night near the end of the 5th week. Bright Wash had closed. Noah was at robotics practice. Julia had already gone home. Hannah sat on one of the folding tables while I tightened a loose screw on a plastic laundry cart. She had rolled her sleeves twice. Exactly twice. She always did that before fixing something. I had started noticing small things about her. The way she checked the front door twice before leaving. The way she drank half her coffee and forgot the rest. The way she never interrupted Noah while he was explaining something, even when she clearly had no idea what he was talking about. I knew those things about her, and she still did not know my last name. I used to think my marriage ended because of money, she said. I looked up. What happened? Nothing dramatic. She gave a small shrug. That was almost the problem. I set the screwdriver down. My ex got offered a job in another state once. He interviewed 3 times before telling me. That's not good. He said he didn't want me to worry until it was real. Then, he moved part of our savings into an investment with his brother. Without telling you. He told me afterward. Did you lose the money? Most of it came back. I waited. She looked across the empty laundromat. That wasn't the point. I already knew what she was going to say before she said it. It was the pattern. He kept making decisions that affected both of us, then explaining afterward that he had been trying to protect me. Her mouth tightened slightly. The sentence I hated most was, I was going to tell you. I looked down at the screwdriver in my hand. For weeks, I had been telling myself exactly that. I was going to tell Hannah. At the end. After I knew. After she had unknowingly given me enough evidence that I could trust her reaction. Hannah continued. By the end, I didn't care whether the decisions turned out well. I hated realizing I was always the last person invited into my own life. That was the moment the entire structure I had built collapsed. I had been telling myself I was protecting something vulnerable. I wanted to know whether Hannah cared about me before money entered the room. That sounded reasonable when I said it privately. What I had actually done was control every meaningful piece of information while judging her response to the version of reality I had chosen for her. I was not asking for trust. I was demanding proof before offering any. And worse, I had begun to care about her while continuing the test. Thomas had warned me about that exact moment. Once someone cared, there was a cost. I had ignored him because the experiment was working. That night, for the first time, I understood that the person being tested was not Hannah. It was me, and I was failing. After she left, I called Thomas from the van. He answered on the second ring. Everything okay? No. Company. Me. That sounds more likely. I'm ending it. The leave. The whole thing. There was a pause. Why? Because you were right. I'm going to need more detail. I want to remember this accurately. Despite myself, I smiled. Someone cares. His tone changed. Does she know? Not yet. Then tell her. I'm doing it tomorrow. Why not tonight? I looked at the dark windshield. She's already gone. Then tomorrow. Before anything else happens. I will. Do you want me there? No. Good. I leaned back against the seat. I'm going to tell her everything. Then don't turn it into an argument for why she should understand you. I closed my eyes. I know. Thomas was quiet for a second. Do you? This time, I did not get defensive. I think I finally do. The next afternoon, Noah came into Bright Wash carrying a notebook. He dropped it on the folding table in front of me. I fixed the overshoot. Good. Now it moves like it's afraid of success. I laughed. Too slow. Painfully. He opened to a page of calculations. I leaned over it. Do you have a pencil? He checked his backpack. Pen. Without thinking, I reached into my jacket and handed him mine. The scratched Aster grid pencil. I did not notice the faded logo. We worked for 20 minutes. I asked questions. He erased numbers, changed values, complained about my refusal to simply tell him what to do, and eventually sat back. I think I got it. Then try it. He slipped the pencil into the front pocket of his hoodie. Neither of us noticed. I left before Hannah arrived for the evening shift because I wanted to shower, change clothes, and come back prepared to tell her the truth. That word mattered to me then. Prepared. I rehearsed everything in my head. My name. Astergrid. The townhouse. The money. Thomas. The van. Why I had started. What I had hidden. I thought if I explained it clearly enough, the honesty at the end might somehow reduce the dishonesty in the middle. By the time I returned to Bright Wash, Hannah had already printed the article, and now she was standing across the counter from me. So I was a test. I looked at her. At first, no, I didn't know you. But after you met me, I could have softened it. I had spent 5 weeks softening things. Yes. She looked away. A dryer buzzer sounded behind her. Neither of us moved. I didn't think of you like that, I said. She turned back. You just described exactly that. I stopped. She was right. Yes. No. Say it clearly. I swallowed. Yes. After I met you, you became part of the test. Her face hardened. She picked up the pencil. Noah found this in his pocket. He saw the logo and searched it. He found your company page and then another article because he thought maybe the picture only looked like you. I nodded. He brought it to me. I'm glad he. Don't. Her voice sharpened. Don't turn this into something noble about Noah. You're right. Did anyone know? Thomas. Anyone here? No. Julia? No. You told me you were between jobs. I'm on temporary leave. She stared at me. That is technically true. Yes. And completely misleading. Yes. You told me you lived in your van. I did. Also true. Yes. Also misleading. Yes. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. I wish she would yell at me. It would have given me something to react to. Instead, she stayed calm. Were you ever going to tell me? The automatic answer rose in my throat. I was going to tell you. I stopped. Last night, I said, I decided to end this and tell you tonight. She almost laughed. You expect me to believe that? No. That surprised her. I continued. I called Thomas after you left. He can confirm that I told him I was ending it. But I understand that doesn't make this better. Why last night? Because of what you told me about your marriage. She went still. When you said this sentence you hated was, I was going to tell you. I realized that was exactly what I had been telling myself for weeks. Her eyes dropped toward the counter. And you still didn't tell me last night. No. Why? I could have said Noah was coming back. I could have said I wanted time. I could have said I wanted to do it properly. All of those things contained some truth. None of them mattered. I should have. She nodded once. That is the first answer tonight I completely believe. I let that sit. After a moment, she walked away from the counter and stood near the folding tables. Was any of it real? Yes. That's easy for you to say. I know. Did you really like coming here? Yes. Did you really care about Noah? Yes. Did you actually sleep in that van every night? Yes. A sound escaped her that was almost a laugh. Of course you did. She shook her head. You could have stopped whenever you wanted. That sentence hit somewhere deeper than the others. Because I had spent weeks telling myself I was learning what life felt like without wealth. I had not. I had learned what temporary inconvenience felt like while wealth waited nearby. Every uncomfortable night came with an invisible exit. Every bad meal. Every cold morning. Every moment of uncertainty. All of it existed inside a life where one phone call could restore everything. I had hidden status. I had never given up power. Hannah came back toward the counter. My problem is not that you have money. I understand. No, I don't think you do. She placed one hand on the article. If you had told me during the second week that you were rich and living in a van because you were having some kind of identity crisis, I might have thought you were ridiculous. That would have been fair. I might have stopped seeing you. I know. That was my choice. I said nothing. And you took it away. There it was. The thing underneath everything. Choice. Not money. Not class. Not embarrassment. Choice. She looked directly at me. You wanted to know whether I would choose you if I thought you had nothing. Yes. But you never let me decide whether I would choose you when I knew you had everything. I had no answer. Not because there wasn't one. Because any answer would have been an attempt to escape the truth of what she had just said. She continued. You decided which version of yourself I was allowed to meet. Then, you watched what I did with the information you gave me. I'm sorry. I believe you. For one dangerous second, hope moved in me. Then, Hannah said, that doesn't mean I can keep doing this. The hope disappeared. Hannah. No. She shook her head. I don't want a long explanation. I don't want to hear why money made you lonely or why people disappointed you before me. Maybe all of that is true. It still doesn't change what you did. I nodded. She looked at me for several seconds. I believe some of what happened between us was real. My throat tightened. That may be the worst part. I did not move. If it had all been fake, this would be easier. I understand. I don't think you do yet. She pushed the pencil toward me. I need you not to call. I stared at it. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not through Julia. Not through Noah. Okay. No flowers. Okay. No donation to Bright Washington. That hurt because she understood me well enough to know exactly what kind of solution I might reach for. Okay. No fixing something for me from a distance. Okay. She watched me. You spent 5 weeks trying to find out what I would do if you had no power. I waited. Now you get to find out what you do when you actually don't. I picked up the pencil. Then my jacket. And I left. No one chased me into the parking lot. No dramatic revelation followed. Noah did not appear at the perfect moment. Julia did not step out of a back room to tell me what I deserved. I walked to the van, sat behind the wheel, and stayed there for nearly an hour. For the first time since I had begun the entire thing, I could not think of a useful action that would improve the outcome. That was the consequence. The next morning, I drove back to my townhouse. After almost 5 weeks in the van, the rooms felt absurdly large. I showered, shaved, put on a navy shirt. Then, I drove to Astergrid. Thomas was waiting in my office. He looked at me once. How bad? She ended it. I'm sorry. I sat down. No, you're not. I can be sorry that you're hurting and still believe she made a reasonable decision. I almost smiled. That sounds like you. What are you going to do? Nothing. Thomas leaned back. Good. I want to apologize. That is not nothing. One letter. Does she want one? I don't know. He thought about that. If you send it, make sure the letter does not create a job for her. What does that mean? No request to call. No request to forgive you. No question she feels obligated to answer. An apology should not become another demand. That afternoon, I wrote 3 pages. Then, I tore them up. They explained too much. I wrote 2. Those went in the trash too. Finally, I wrote less than 1 page. I told Hannah she had been right. I had taken away her ability to decide what relationship she was entering. I told her my feelings had been real, but sincerity did not erase the way I had created the situation. I told her I would respect the boundaries she had set. I did not ask her to forgive me. I did not ask her to call. I mailed the letter. Then, I left her alone. That was harder than I expected. My entire adult life rewarded intervention. A failing system wanted diagnosis. A contract problem wanted revision. A missed target wanted adjustment. A company in trouble wanted somebody to take control. Hannah wanted me to do none of those things. She wanted restraint. So, I practiced restraint. I did not check Brightwash's social media. I did not ask Thomas to find out how the business was doing. I did not contact Julia. I did not contact Noah. I did not drive past the laundromat. When Grid's community relations director later brought me a list of local organizations being considered for sponsorship, Julia's nonprofit appeared on it. I removed myself from the decision. I did not want generosity to become another form of access. About a month after I returned, Thomas and I were reviewing a contract when he looked up from the page. You stopped calling it the experiment. I frowned. What? You used to call it an experiment every time you talked about it. I closed the document. What should I call it? A mistake is available. I've been using that. He nodded. Seems more accurate. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Then, we went back to work. 10 weeks passed. I knew nothing about Hannah during that time except that she had not contacted me. No updates through friends. No secret information. No signs that she missed me. The uncertainty was uncomfortable. It was also the first honest uncertainty I had allowed into a relationship in years. On a Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed as I walked out of a meeting. The number was not saved. I recognized it anyway. Daniel, if you still want to talk, I can meet for coffee Thursday. Public place. 1 hour. No promises. I read the message 3 times. My first impulse was to call Thomas. I didn't. My second was to send Hannah a paragraph explaining everything I had learned. I didn't do that either. I replied with 1 sentence. Thursday works. Tell me where. She chose a coffee shop in Lakewood. I arrived 5 minutes early and waited to order until she came in. When Hannah walked through the door, she was wearing jeans and a cream sweater. Her hair was down. She saw me and paused for half a second. Then, she came to the table. Hi. Hi. She sat. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Then, she looked at my shirt. No charcoal jacket. I retired it. Good. There was a little humor in her voice. Not much. Enough. We ordered coffee. Then, she asked questions. Real ones. What did I actually do at Grid? How often did I travel? Where did I live? Did I have security around me all the time? Did people genuinely behave differently once they knew how much money I had? I answered every question directly. Eventually, she leaned back. This is strange. I know. No. I mean hearing the boring version. The boring version? Your actual life. Meetings. Your mother in Fort Collins. The fact that you have a mortgage even though you apparently did not need one. I like the interest rate. She smiled. Then, the smile faded. I'm still angry. You should be. Her eyes narrowed. Don't agree with everything I say because you're scared I'll leave. I almost said, that's fair. I caught myself. All right. I'll work on that. One eyebrow lifted. Better. I laughed. This time, she laughed too. Hearing it again hurt more than I expected. Then, she became serious. I didn't ask you here because I decided what you did was okay. I understand. I asked because I kept thinking about 2 different questions. I waited. Did you lie to me? Yes. And was every kind thing you did during those weeks fake? I thought before answering. That part isn't mine to decide for you. No. She wrapped both hands around her coffee. I don't think it was. Something moved in my chest. I stayed still. But that does not mean we go back. I don't want to go back. She looked at me. I want a chance to start at the real beginning. Hannah studied my face. 1 coffee at a time. Okay. No promises. Okay. If I ask something, you answer. Yes. Even if you think the truth will make me like you less. That one landed. Yes. We stayed 58 minutes. I know because she checked her phone and said, you have 2 minutes left. I smiled. Should I make them memorable? Please don't. So I didn't. I asked how Noah's robotics team was doing. She told me they had qualified for a regional event. Then, she stood. I have to go. Thank you for meeting me. She picked up her bag, then stopped. Daniel. Yeah. I'm not forgiving you today. I know, but I'm not saying never. Then, she left. That was how we started again. Not with a dramatic reunion. Not with a promise. With coffee. 1 hour. Then, another. For our second new date, Hannah chose a taco place. For the third, I cooked at my townhouse, and she spent the first 20 minutes making fun of the fact that my refrigerator contained expensive mustard and almost nothing you could build a meal around. When she eventually met Thomas, his first sentence to her was, I argued against the entire idea. Hannah looked at me. I like him. I knew you would. Careful. No, it took longer. That mattered. The first time I saw him after everything happened, he stood beside his mother at Bright Wash and looked at me. So your name really is Daniel? Yes. And you really run that company? I helped start it. A lot of people run it now. He nodded. Then, he said, you should have told my mom. Yes. That was the whole conversation. He did not owe me more. Months later, he asked if I would help him with an essay for a summer engineering program. That invitation meant more to me than any business award I had received in years. We met at Bright Wash after closing because Noah said he concentrated better there. I wore a navy work shirt and jeans. No disguise. No attempt to look richer. No attempt to look poorer. Just clothes. Noah sat at one of the folding tables with his essay covered in notes. This paragraph sounds fake, he said. I read it. It does. You're supposed to help. I am. How is that helping? Now you know the paragraph sounds fake. He rolled his eyes. Behind the counter, Hannah was closing the register. Her sleeves were rolled exactly twice. Some things did not change. Noah tapped his pencil against the table. The tip snapped. Seriously? Without thinking, I reached into my shirt pocket. The old mechanical pencil was there. Scratched silver barrel. Faded Aster grid logo. I held it out. Noah looked at the pencil. Then at me. You kept that? Yes. That thing caused a lot of problems. No. He waited. I caused the problems. He thought about that. Fair. Then, he took the pencil. For the next 20 minutes, we worked on his essay. I asked questions. He complained. I made him rewrite one sentence 3 times. Hannah locked the front door and switched off half the lights. 5 more minutes. Noah looked up. You said that 10 minutes ago. I own the place. Time is flexible. On the table beside me was a volunteer sign-in sheet Hannah had started using for community laundry nights. I had helped twice during the previous month. Not with money. With folding. The first time, Hannah had simply handed me the clipboard. My name was already written on that night's sheet. Daniel Mercer. Full name. Nothing shortened. Nothing hidden. Noah pushed the essay toward me. What about the ending? I read the final paragraph. It's trying too hard. He sighed. So what am I supposed to do? Say what changed. That's it. Then stop. He looked at me for a second, then back at the page. Across the room, Hannah glanced over. The corner of her mouth lifted. Noah bent over the essay again and started writing with the scratched Aster grid pencil. I looked at my full name on the volunteer sheet. Months earlier, I had believed the hardest question in love was whether someone wanted me or the life surrounding me. I had been wrong. Hannah had cared about me when she thought I had almost nothing. She answered that question before I deserved the answer. The harder lesson came afterward. Could I tell someone the truth without controlling what they did with it? Could I give another person enough information to walk away from me and still respect the choice? Could I stop treating trust like something other people had to prove first? Noah erased a sentence and tried again. Hannah finished counting the register. I stayed in my chair. The old pencil moved across the page between Noah's fingers, the same small logo still visible near the clip. For once, nobody in the room was being tested. Nothing was hidden, and I finally understood that trust did not begin when someone chose me. It began when I gave them the truth and accepted that they might not.